Welcome back to Broker and the Agent, where Richard talks finance, I talk real estate, and together we pretend to know everything. Today we've leveled up. We brought in someone who actually does know everything. We've got a special guest, Garren Pezikian from Pezikian Legal, the man who reads contracts for fun, explains clauses like their Netflix plot twists, and somehow makes cooling off periods sound exciting.
I'm excited, Alex. I've been wanting to sit down with Garrett and really get behind what happens after I throw a deal his way and understand, what's happening there. Just get a bit more of a feel for it, and invite our audience to also level up as well.
Yeah, I'm also excited to be here, guys. It's I've seen your previous episode and it was really enjoyable to watch. I have worked with both of you on deals before, so I'm familiar with you guys, so it doesn't feel any different. But today here we're going to talk about the law, conveyancing, property deals, finance, all sorts of stuff. So I'm excited.
Yeah, exciting times. Well, look, all right, before we get started into the scary legal stuff, let's rewind a bit, guys. Garren, how did you end up in the world of property law? I mean, was it passion or did someone trick you with a really long contract? Tell us a bit of your journey and what pulled you into this space.
Yeah, so I've always been connected with property. So after school, I studied civil engineering, majoring in construction management. I studied that, I finished that, and then I moved into the construction management world. I worked as a foreman slash construction manager for a couple of years. Um, After that, I just decided that wasn't for me, so I just decided to study law and become a lawyer, specifically in property and construction law. And now I'm working as a lawyer. I've started my own firm, Pezikian Legal. We specialize in property, construction, and strata law. Doing a lot of conveyancing now, which I really enjoy. It's quick, it's fun, it's dynamic. You're dealing with a lot of third parties, such as brokers, real estate agents. So yeah, it's going very well.
How long has that been happening for with your own firm?
I started in April 2024. So it's been about, what is it, 18 months or 20 months now? Yeah.
Yeah, and how do you find it? I mean, is it stressful or is it a walk in the park for you?
Yeah, definitely some days are stressful. Obviously, as a business owner, you're dealing with the responsibility of running the business. So yeah, definitely it is stressful, but it feels like it is rewarding. And obviously, yeah, it's different to working in a law firm. You're dealing with a lot more components of the business, which I do enjoy.
Yeah, Garrett, I've been wanting to be sitting down with you to ask some questions. So, I think where I would like to ask is that you've seen your fair share of deals. Where do deals, from your perspective, usually go wrong? What can be avoided to improve a deal success?
Yeah, like so the main cause of a deal falling through is due to the failure to obtain finance. Most people have pre-approval before they sign the contract, but sometimes that pre-approval is not a guarantee that you're going to get the full approval. So we'll reach settlement and they can't get finance. Usually the seller will issue a notice to complete with 2 weeks to complete. And if you can't complete on time, you're going to lose your deposit. There'll also be other default penalties as well.
We saw a
Yeah,
close one ourselves recently, so I
yeah, we
think
did.
that's why. So I don't mean
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be smiling during such a precautious situation, but yeah, just PTSD for myself from that.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta roll the dice, hope for the best. There's always private equity option as well, but that's if you got access to that sort of facilities.
I think we all know which deal that one was, and thankfully that settles next Saturday. So very excited for that one for all of us. That was a
Yeah.
close call.
Yeah,
Yes.
some other issues that might, cause a bad deal is when the due diligence is not done correctly. So, you buy a house and there was no building and pest report. You become the owner and you see all these defects afterwards. So it's a bad deal, I guess. The owner's left with defects. Usually the contract will say that the purchaser is liable for any defects after settlements. For strata purchases, if someone purchases a property without a unit without a strata report, they become the owner, and then they realize that there's all these special levies.
Yeah.
So yeah, due diligence, the lack of due diligence is what can lead to a bad deal as well.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of with that particular deal that we were just talking about, they're one of the cleanest strata reports I've personally seen. I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys would agree as well. But that brings me to my next question: is what should buyers be aware of when looking into a strata report or purchasing a strata report?
Yeah, so when you're buying into strata, usually it's a unit, apartment, or townhouse. I always advise my purchaser clients to obtain a strata report. You want that strata report to be quite comprehensive. The main thing I'm looking for is the risk of special levies being raised. And a special levy is usually raised to repair and maintain common property. And common property is essentially anything outside of a lot. And a lot, we're going to go a bit deep here. A lot is pretty much the airspace between the upper surface of the floor, the undersurface of the ceilings, and the internal surfaces of the boundary walls of a unit. So anything inside those boundaries is the lot, and pretty much everything outside of that is common property. And the common property under the legislation, the owner's corporation has to repair and maintain. So if there's defects that arise in the common property, the owner's corporation has to fix it. Sometimes they're pretty bad defects and might cost millions of dollars to fix. And usually the kitty doesn't have enough money to pay for those type of repairs, so they're going to have to find the money from other sources, which is usually a special levy or a strata loan. But both are going to cause the lot owner to pay more in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had a situation recently in an apartment block where there was a burst pipe behind the wall, but if in the concrete, and the question got raised: if that leaks through the concrete, does it become the owner's responsibility, or is it still the owner's corporation responsibility because it's technically in the wall?
Well, it depends on if the pipe is common property or not. If the pipe is in a boundary wall or a wall that is common property, then yes, it's the owner's corporation's responsibility to repair any defective common property as well as any lot property that is damaged due to that defect. If the
Yeah.
pipe is in a lot property wall, which is going to be the internal walls of the unit, then it's the lot owner's responsibility to repair.
Yeah, it's good
That's
to know. I mean,
interesting.
something that not many people would know of. I mean, you're coming in and you're buying a property and you don't know what you're responsible for. So that's, I think it's really important to touch on that and what the owner's actually responsible for. But in terms of reaching out to someone like yourself, when should someone be reaching out to a lawyer when looking to buy or sell?
Yeah, so in New South Wales, which is the state where I do most of my work, I do a bit of work in Victoria as well. In New South Wales, before a property is listed, you need a contract of sale. So, usually a seller will say, will come to the decision that they want to sell their property. They'll go to a real estate agent first. They'll get the real estate agent engaged, such as Alex Minassian. And then once the real estate agent is engaged, the real estate agent or the vendor will come to me, someone like me, and they'll ask for a contract. I'll prepare that contract. Usually takes 2 to 3 days because the planning certificate usually takes the longest to get, and that's one of the documents that need to be attached to the contract. And then I give that contract to the real estate agent, and the real estate agent is able to list the property.
Yeah,
For what was that?
work my magic.
Yeah.
Talking
Yeah,
about
I don't step back into the picture until the real estate agent finds a purchaser. So I just, sit back, wait for the call. For a purchaser, I usually tell my purchaser clients that you should find a property that you really like, and then I can get involved and I can review the contract. I can review the strata report if it's a strata property, or I can review the building and pest report if it's a freehold property. Yeah, usually I usually recommend my clients to find the property that they want. You know, I don't want them spending on legal costs for no reason, reviewing contracts for properties they don't really want. So I usually just tell them, find the property that you really want that's in your price range, and then come to me.
Yeah, especially when it comes to auctions, just doing the due diligence of surrounding sales and then really, really liking the property, knowing what you're going to bid at, where your budget is, and everything. Because the last thing you want to do is go to an auction, and I've seen this many times where someone's not prepared to pay the price, and then they've obviously given the contract to you to review, and that's a charge that obviously you've got to charge, and they end up
Mm,
not purchasing the property, and they end up very upset just because
mm.
they've just yourself, and they've missed out on the property as well, and they have to go to the next one. So can be very
Yeah,
costly.
it is what it is, though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's the game, isn't it? So,
Mm.
Richie, when should someone come to you in terms of finance? Is there a sort of timeline that now we've established when you should go to a lawyer, but what about finance side?
Well, I'd prefer they come to me before anything, right? When they're thinking about, wanting to potentially purchase, refinance, whatever it might be. But, take a look at what the financial position is first, determine what is available, and then build the framework and a strategy so that we get these options available for ourselves. Alternatively, more undesirably, if a client puts down a deposit for a property and then comes and says, "Hey, get me finance," that's going to be very, very tight, right? So I'd rather have that lead up, understand where they are. So and I think you probably understand this, Alex and Garren as well, is that if you're in that position, you're limiting your options, right? If you're waiting to the last second to get the finance ready, you've got the house you want to or the property you want to buy, but now, the Strata report comes back, something comes back, the contract conditions aren't favorable. It kind of puts them in a tight position. Whereas if you get the finance ready first, all you got to do is, provide us the contract to sale, the executed contract to sale, go and get a valuation done. Practically, we don't usually provide pre-approvals anything less than, that requirement. Having done so at that stage, that's probably the best. Speak to us, a broker first before going and looking at properties. At least you know what your budget is. At least.
Basically, have the money before you talk to me.
Absolutely right. Well, have the money first before you go ahead and make a commitment on something that you might not be able to back up the remaining 80% of, right? 80, 90% of. So yeah, that'd be probably rule of thumb.
Yeah, that's something I see every day at open homes. We have buyers come in that aren't ready, that are looking to get ready. They're in the research phase of things, but then they see something they really, really like, and they try to scramble and get everything together, get the cash sorted, get the statements out to you, Richard, get the documents out to you, Garren, and things like that. But by the time they get all that done, then someone else has already made an offer and they've missed out. And then and when are you going to find something you really like afterwards? And then you've got a expiry, don't you, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely. We got the 3 month expiry for pre-approvals. We can look to go ahead with an extension with the lender, or we can reapply if need be, worst case. But the way I see it is, if you are looking to enter into the market in any way, shape, or form, have a word. Look at what the strategy is,
Yeah.
and I think what it is as well is that uh, it's about just I deal with clients on a 6 month basis, right? Where they're nowhere near purchasing, but they're because what they're looking for, unfortunately, the financial position isn't there yet. And I'm saying, okay, these are certain things that we can get to if you want to reach this price point that you're looking to purchase, whether it be savings, whether it be your income, whether it be employment, whether it be expenses, liabilities. If we want to reach here, this is what the profile is going to need to look like. Obviously, there's going to be moving parts with the market, but it's probably the most robust framework to get there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get to the top of the staircase without taking the steps at the bottom, right? So you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Was going to ask, Garren, talking about magic and settlements, PEXA, the magical PEXA. As far as I know, I throw you stuff, you do magic, and then I it settles. So if you could run me through how PEXA works, what's the go behind it?
Yeah, essentially, once a contract is signed and if there's a cooling off period, once it goes unconditional, the solicitors or the conveyancers will set up a PEXA workspace. And that PEXA workspace is the one-stop shop for the settlement process, essentially. In the olden days, we would prepare, physical transfer documents, physical discharge of mortgage documents. Those documents would be taken to, New South Wales LRS, or it used to be called LPI. And then, at settlement, the solicitors or the conveyancers would meet at SAI Global in the city usually, and they would hand over documents and hand over checks, and the settlement would occur through that process. But everything is now on PEXA. It's all online. All the adjustments are calculated online. Stamp duty is dealt with online as well on the PEXA workspace. The documents such as the transfer, discharge of mortgage, other type of documents, they're all prepared on PEXA. And just, couple hits of a button and it's all done. So, it's very easy. It's become much easier since the olden days. You can get a PEXA workspace up and running within a day or so. Um, and yeah, it pretty much at settlement, your money, the money that comes in from the lender will be dispersed. The money that comes in from the lender and potentially the purchaser will be dispersed to all the third parties. Of course, the vendor. It goes to the vendor. It goes to Sydney Water. It'll go to the owners corporation if there's any strata levies to pay. It'll go to the council if there's any rates to pay. So everyone's paid. I get paid through it as well. So yeah, it's a very nifty sort of tool. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for
Yeah, I mean,
revealing that trick.
Garren, what kind of due diligence would you do when someone's looking to purchase a freehold property?
So with a freehold property, which is essentially a Torrens title or something that's not a strata scheme, not within a strata scheme. With those type of properties, I would usually I will always recommend a building and pest report to be obtained. The reason for that is in a freehold property, you own the whole land and all the improvements on the land. So you want to know that the house that you're buying is structurally sound and free from defects. So I always recommend they get those reports. They'll get the reports, they'll give it to me, I'll go through it. If there's nothing major, we move forward. If there's something major, we can negotiate the price down, or we just decide not to go ahead with the sale, with the purchase, sorry. So yeah, that's the main difference. Instead of a strata report, we get a building and pest report. With strata property purchases, I don't usually recommend a building and pest report unless the unit inside is quite run down. Um, I recommend this because most of the things in the unit are not actually lot property. They're actually common property, which the owners corporation is responsible to repair and maintain,
Yeah.
such as balcony doors, balcony balustrades, tiling, carpets, the plasterboard ceilings. They're all common property. So it's not as vital to get a building and pest report. And if you walk into a unit and everything looks pretty, sound, yeah, there's no reason to get one. So that's the main difference.
It goes back.
I'm enjoying this very much
Yeah.
so. Because we obviously sit down with Garren and talk, business. We might talk casual, but now we get to really hold him in one position and ask him the solicitor questions.
You can
So this
always
is
ask
really
me questions, mate. You can always
thank,
ask me questions.
thank you. Then I'll get a law degree. If but don't you want to withdraw that as quick as you can.
No, no,
Um,
I'm happy to field questions. It's all right.
I wanted to ask, man. So, what kind of things do you negotiate before a contract of sale is entered into?
Yeah, so there's a few things I do negotiate. Usually I look at the front pages. I would have a look at those and to see, if there's any risks to my clients. If the purchaser client wants to move in straight away after settlement, which is usually the case, I have to make sure that the vacant possession box is ticked. Um, and if it's not ticked, we're going to have to negotiate that. Sometimes the landlord doesn't want to kick out the tenant, which is fair enough. But yeah, I would make sure that vacant possession box is ticked. The next thing I would usually look at is land tax. I don't want my purchaser clients paying land tax, so I make sure the no box is ticked. Um, and then I would look through the contractual provisions to see if there's anything adverse. Usually the special conditions are quite standard. There's nothing that jumps out. They are usually vendor friendly. But in order to get that deal through, you sometimes try not to negotiate too many of those clauses because they're not red flags. They're just something that makes the deal more favorable to the vendor. But if everything runs smoothly, the purchaser client gets their finance, they can settle on time. Those problems usually don't lead to any. Those clauses don't usually lead to any issues.
Yeah, I mean, we went through something just similar, right, on a deal we were working on all together. The one that settles next week, thankfully. But yeah, put a lot of effort into that, boys. Well done.
Yeah, yeah. I also, if there's a strata report that shows special levies, I would sometimes try to negotiate that the vendor pays a portion of those special levies. If there's
Yeah.
a building report that shows some defects, I try to negotiate that the vendor has to repair some of those defects or reduce the purchase price. So yeah, those are the type of things I negotiate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, look, that brings us to an end of episode 2 of Broker and the Agent. Garren, thanks for jumping on with us today and making the legal side of property sound almost fun. Seriously, great insights, and we know buyers and sellers listening will avoid at least one future headache because of this episode. So thank you for that. And to everyone tuning in, hope you picked up a few tips and you can use those before signing your next contract or panic bidding at an auction. And remember, if you've got any questions, call Garren at Pezikian Legal on 0447 195 573. He actually enjoys reading the fine print, so you don't have to.
Thank you, Garren, as well. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed. Stay tuned, episode 3 and beyond. We've got other guests lined up from different fields to add value to your experience when it deals with everything to do with a house or a roof. So, hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and we look forward to seeing you in 2026.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I really enjoyed my time, and I hope everyone out there has learnt a little bit more about the conveyancing process and they feel more at ease when they're purchasing or selling a property.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers,
No worries.
guys.